Good evening, good morning. Welcome to week 8 or lesson 8 of PADM 401 here at Penn State University. I want to apologize at the onset. I should have included a YouTube video last week. However, I was having difficulties with Canvas logins. I'm not sure if it hit everybody yet, but they're putting in a two-person authentication, and for me, just getting on the double authentication was an issue. So I apologize for being a little bit behind on these YouTube videos and on the grades, but we should all be caught up, or I should be caught up by this week. So what I want to start off is current events. A lot going on in the world as I'm talking about this. Big thing that happened last week. Again, due to the Orlando shooting, there has been a renewal to try and cross-reference the terrorism watch lists with background checks when you purchase a firearm or even a semi-automatic weapon. As I said previously, this will only work two ways. One, you have to know when someone who is on the no-fly list, when they want to purchase a gun, and then you have to go the other way where someone pops up on the no-fly list, and then you want to find out that person's history of weapons purchases. That would make it effective. However, the issue that comes up is the constitutionality of this. I've said it before, and I would say it again. The no-fly list is produced by people who are bureaucrats in Washington. I don't want to say that negatively, but they're bureaucrats who make the decisions on whether this person's on a no-fly list, whether this person gets additional screening. It's not a jury, it's not a court, it's not due process, and that is the issue that comes up. So right now, yeah, everyone's in favor of it. What will happen, unfortunately, when the politics happen is, okay, when we suddenly start putting people on right-wing militia lists or right-wing extremist lists, and we say you can't buy a gun. Fair or not, that's going to have a political impact that I don't think we are foreseeing yet. So, I don't mean it to sound negative, but yeah, everyone could say, yeah, I think ISIS, people who surf on ISIS websites should be put on gun-restricted lists. Then it becomes, okay, what about people who are anti-government, people who are right-wing extremists? What is a right-wing extremist? What definition? If you're surfing on an ISIS website, that's one thing. What happens if you're surfing on a right-wing extremist website? Who's to say that's a right-wing extremist? That will become the issue. Again, the politics will be pretty big when that comes out. So second thing, Brexit. That's the British leaving the European Union, and what a big thing that instigated it was the migration crisis that we've had over the past year, and then the fact that EU has kind of the open borders issue. You get into, if you're a terrorist and you want to get into the EU, you go to the weakest point, which is probably Greece, and then you can travel freely across Europe. Whether that was actually a threat or not, whether it's worth exiting the EU, that was one of the issues. That was a homeland security issue. And that's something to look into, if you want to do your second paper on, is the failures of the EU in stopping ISIS, or how ISIS has exploited the open nature of the EU to move, exploited the seams to move across borders. And Brexit, that it hasn't been reported in the news a lot, but that was a factor in people voting to leave the European Union. And we could argue, was it paranoia? Did they overstate the problem? I'll let you decide, but that was a homeland security issue that, for England anyway, that was relevant. And then finally, current events. There's a great article on Newsweek about attacking D.C., about particularly a WMD attack against Washington, D.C. What I like about it is that it undermines some of the myths related to WMD terrorism. I think we might conflate that threat a little bit too much. I personally believe that we went to war in Iraq back in 2003 because of the fear that Saddam Hussein would give WMD to terrorists and cause a 9/11 times 10. That was a driving factor in going to war in Iraq. Obviously, there was no WMD in Iraq, but what I still maintain to this day is that people didn't analyze the issue with enough clarity. And I should forewarn you that I've deployed to Iraq, and I think the Iraq War was a mistake. I should make that clear at the onset. And I think what drove the American people was this inflated threat of WMD and terrorism that really, well, we know now wasn't really there, and that might have been inflated. So I'll leave it at that, but I really recommend you read it. It was in this week's Newsweek article, and it was the cover story, and it might give you ideas on what to write your second paper on. Paper 1. Okay, so I marked all the papers. Some of you did well. Some of you need work. And I think the big thing, for a lot of you, far too much background. I do not need you to cite the papers or to almost summarize a 300-page paper or 300-page congressional report, and then that's your paper. This is not summarizing stuff. That might have been good in high school and might have been good in college, but when you get to graduate level analysis, I want your analysis. Get to your analysis. Do not give me, if you're talking about Hurricane Katrina, do not tell me, spend half your paper on about hurricanes and what happened on the 3 days around Katrina. What I only want the background is, if you're going to talk about the failures of local levels or municipalities to conduct an evacuation, focus your analysis on that aspect. I'll also be clear that the best papers are focused. They try and narrow down a topic. A 8-page paper on cybersecurity is far too broad. Would be talking about denial of service as it relates to transportation sector. And even then, that's a broad topic. Even you can narrow it down further. When you think you've narrowed down your topic, try and narrow it down further. Or when you think you've narrowed it down enough, still narrow it down further. You can't get as specific as possible. And again, these one over the world on cybersecurity or one over the world papers on disaster relief, far too broad. And it really takes away from your writing. It makes your papers look like you just came out of Wikipedia. So again, narrow your focus so you can provide good analysis. Be as specific as possible. If you're talking about, and again, several of you brought up the border wall and why it hasn't been complete or why the southern border isn't secure, talk about actually specific. Put dollar amounts. Put program management. Put things that need to be fixed so the southern border is secure. I don't want, willy-nilly, we need to put more resources into the border, or we need to work together better. Tell me specifically what you would fix or what's going on and your recommendations to fix. And again, use dollar amounts, use other mechanisms where people can make trade-offs. If you're going to talk about constitutionality or unconstitutionality, get down to the amendment and get down to the law that is unconstitutional. For some of you, when you talked about watch lists, and several of you talked about that. Don't just give me a one over the world, civil liberties are being violated, blah, blah, blah. Get down to, if you're talking about the Snowden issues, talk about how this violates the Fourth Amendment and compare it to other case law that would make your paper even that much more analytical. So again, be as specific as possible, particularly when you're making your recommendations. And then proofread. This is graduate work. I shouldn't have to talk about grammar, spelling, and those types of things. You are probably not the best proofreader. I would show it to a friend, family member, significant other, just so they can spot the errors. So if there's any questions on paper 1, please let me know. Just coming up, lesson 8, big thing. We've harped on this a little bit, but now we're going to get a little bit more specific on DHS functions as they are vertically aligned. We talked about horizontal among the federal government and the different agencies in previous lessons. Here we're going to talk vertical. So if you have a Hurricane Katrina, what does the federal government do? What does the state government do? What does local? What functions? And I want you to be as specific as possible when answering this discussion section. What functions should be performed at different levels of government? For example, in Katrina, evacuation, or in general, evacuation is generally done at the municipal level. A lot of people say in Katrina, and I tend to agree, that function got screwed up, that the municipality did not do a good job. So when does the federal government come in? Should the federal government come in and just start forcing evacuations? They didn't do it for Hurricane Sandy. They've never done it, period. But the federal government usually has the best meteorologists, the best models, the best data analysts, and they can say it's going to be bad on the New Jersey coast prior to Hurricane Sandy. The president now can order an evacuation. He doesn't do that. He hasn't done that, but that's, evacuation is something that should that be at the local, national, or federal level? I don't know if you ever worked with SOC North in Special Operations Command Northcom. I just came back from an exercise there a few weeks ago, and one of the functions, it was a loose nuclear weapon exercise, and the question is, who informs the public that there is a loose nuclear weapon? Federal, state, local. Maybe it'd be better that a state or local official does it, because you're talking about something that can cause mass panic. But the federal government are the experts in nuclear detection, blast patterns, plume design, all those things when you're talking about a evacuation of a large area as it relates to nuclear weapons. So who does that? Who is the public face of a disaster? Those are the questions I want you to think about when you're going through this week's exercise. So if there's any questions to the paper, let me know. And I mentioned earlier about a job talk. If there's anything you guys want to talk about working in the federal government, getting a job in the federal government, military transitions, getting a job if you're brand new. I know we have a couple of undergraduates in this class, so there might be lessons applicable to them. Please let me know.